Welcome into the non-neutral zone. It's all about football with Brandon, Josh, and producer Gunner.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back into the non-neutral zone. I'm Josh. I'm here with Gunner, PG,
Woo-hoo!
producer Gunner, and Brandon.
Hey, what's up, man?
Coming in clutch. Yeah, we got a fun show for you. We did a little thing this past weekend. We did a little live stream with you guys over the first round of the NFL draft. We only did the first round, but turns out they finished the whole thing without us. So we're gonna catch you guys up on that. Yeah. So
I didn't know you were going to do that joke, Josh. That was really funny.
Yeah, you caught us off guard with
Funny, that was unscripted humor.
it was true. It was true.
But it was a lot of fun doing the draft.
Yeah, it was.
The half that I did.
Was it fun, Gunner?
Yeah.
So if you didn't join us for the draft, or if you only joined us for part of it,
You did the same thing Gunner did.
yeah,
Peace.
Gunner said, "Hey, we should live stream the draft for our listeners in case they want to hang out. We can have some community. Maybe they don't have a place to watch it." And so he was just a fire starter. He started the fire.
Mm-hmm.
He deuced out to go watch reruns of Andy Griffith.
Yep.
Oh man.
Terrible.
100% right.
Man. As long as you whistle that theme song, we're good.
I don't want to get a copyright strike, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks everybody for stopping by. That was great.
I want to man, I can't get it together. I wanted to before we get too far into it, we had some prop bets that we followed, and Josh and I tied with Gunner. So I guess technically all three tied because Gunner we didn't let you pick the first one, which you would have gotten correct. So
you tossed the first one.
We tied on our prop bets, but we had some pretty good predictions. I got to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish that there was an update to give you guys that I crushed Josh and he was going to buy me a steak, but
we're all buying our own steaks.
Yeah, we're going.
I got a box of frozen steaks in my freezer right now. You guys can help yourselves. I can't finish it.
Are they Omaha?
No, I got them from Walmart and they're horrible.
Oh,
frozen steaks from Walmart.
Yeah. I was like, it was really cheap. It was like, $6 for a box of 12. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
That's cheap.
Yeah, it's very cheap, and I
got
what I paid for.
Yep.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah, so that's got you caught up on everything from this past weekend. We got a lot to get into, so let's mosey along here. We're gonna get into the news.
Yep. That just happened.
That just happened.
So we're going to cover the draft in free balling. So not much. We're not going to really touch the news that much. But we do want to say one thing about the viewership on the draft. It was the highest viewership ever, right?
Yeah, for any draft, for any sport.
Yeah. More than 55 million views, according to Phil Yates from ESPN. An average of 8.4 million people watched all three events. That's incredible for any kind of live broadcast TV.
It's a huge number.
Very big.
So what do you what do you take from that number?
There's nothing else on.
I think people are just starved for sports. Like the ones that have been wanting some live sports, they're anxious for it, and I mean, there are a million movies on right now that they could have watched, but they
chose to watch players getting drafted.
Yeah, in their homes, no big to do.
Yeah,
mom and dad sitting on the couch.
I think the thing that I take from is the blue check mark brigade, on Twitter, and a lot of your people that thought the NFL was being too insensitive when they let free agency go ahead and get started, and the NFL is going to go ahead with the draft. And I think the NFL was bold and moving forward, and people were super receptive. We need that escape of sports.
And they were able to do it reasonably without putting people in the way of the
they were
virus. So
they were safe, and
they got Dr. Fauci's blessing at the beginning.
I missed that. Did they really?
Yeah, he came on and he kind of like blessed it, not like a pope, but he said, "Yeah, you're."
That was what was in my mind, he's sprinkling the water.
But that was important apparently it's important to the organization to get that kind of like go ahead and saying, hey, we're doing it right. We took all the proper precautions because we don't want any flack later on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it was a big thing.
Yeah.
It was as good as a draft as we've seen. Like, it was fun.
Yeah.
Okay. You all right there, Brandon?
I'm okay, man. Something's tickling my throat as soon as we start recording. I feel bad.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Moving on, the Saints are letting us know that they are planning on life without Drew Brees in the not-so-distant future. Taysom Hill signed a 2-year extension that makes him one of the highest-paid backups in the league.
Yep, I think that's their guy too. Like they had talked to, there's a lot of talk this morning about Jameis Winston coming into the organization as the backup, and nothing's happened yet. And in between that talk, they signed Taysom Hill. They gave him an extension. So I think I wonder if some of that was just motivation for Hill to sign that contract. Go ahead and get a deal done.
It could, and they could still end up signing Jameis to a 1-year deal, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, on a 1 year, if they have the cap space to go ahead and have another quote capable backup,
Yeah,
it is
but
interesting.
and honestly, Winston's thrown more passes complete to the Saints than Taysom Hill. So he's had 10 interceptions against them, where Taysom Hill only has 7 completions. So,
well, and I think it's interesting because the Saints use one of their 4 draft picks on a quarterback too.
Yeah.
So if they feel confident about Taysom Hill and they potentially may sign, we may find by the time this podcast drops that they've signed Jameis Winston.
Which would be our luck.
Yeah, right. But it seems crowded. But I think they're allocating a significant amount of money to Taysom Hill. I think it was for $21 million or $24 million. I don't remember exact number, over 2 years. I mean, that's a solid deal for a backup.
Yeah, yeah, and it's obvious they love him. They've used him on the field in ways, even with Drew Brees there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is odd that when Drew Brees went down, they went with Teddy Bridgewater, and maybe they like Taysom Hill's skill set, but he's not there yet developmentally. So maybe another year, whatever it is, they think he's the guy. I believe.
Yeah, that's a good point because Taysom Hill's been on the. This wasn't his first year on the roster, right?
Oh no.
He's been on the roster for however long, and even longer than Bridgewater would have been on the roster.
Yeah,
and he's played quarterback for a good amount of time, but maybe they feel like has been a gadget quarterback and is growing into.
And part of it too may be the experience. So when Taysom Hill is in there, he doesn't have the experience as a starting quarterback, and the Saints had the roster where all they needed was a quarterback not to make mistakes, and that's who Teddy Bridgewater is.
Yeah.
So and they went deep into the playoffs. So,
but I love Taysom Hill. I love that signing. I think that's a fun little piece, and it's almost like a draft pick.
Yeah.
Solidifying that.
So light on the news this week because we're going to hit the draft pretty hard in our upcoming segment. But I want to tease our short show spectacular real quick. Check it out tomorrow. We're going to draft our rookie fantasy league, our top 4 rookie picks for top performers for 2020.
Yeah,
so
that'd be
be sure to download that and give it a listen.
Yeah.
But moving on to,
so we're gonna tease it, and then we're gonna get into free balling. So hold on.
Story of my life.
Free balling.
All right, that is free balling. We are free balling. Are you? Anybody?
I am. Sunday afternoon. Yeah.
Right on.
No.
All right. So Brandon gave a quick no. So in general, what are your guys' feelings on the virtual fantasy experience?
As good as we could hope for. I like the to do, and especially we were able to attend the draft last year in Nashville and to see the spectacle that it is. And I was excited that it was going to be in Las Vegas and all the things that could bring. But given the circumstances, I thought that they did an excellent job. I just needed some more sad Trey Wingo stories about how messed up some of these parents were and stuff like that. Other than that, I thought that from a technical standpoint, from a production standpoint, I thought it was an excellent, easy to follow and watch. I thought they did a great job.
Yeah. It was cool to see too, like the ESPN's team and ABC, they actually had some good some good coverage because they pulled in from the NFL Network team. So they had like Daniel Jeremiah, who's he's a pro all-star, as far as all that goes. So it was good, some talent, and see what that's like.
Yeah, as far as broadcast tech and techniques go, NFL has everyone beat, I think. They have it
Yeah.
locked down. One thing that I thought was most interesting is seeing the coaches' homes.
I was about I'm glad you said that because I was
Yeah.
going to ask who you guys did you have a favorite home?
Well,
or
you went
draft?
everywhere from Jerry Jones on his yacht, and to I forgot who it was, but I heard it described as like a used car salesman's office. Like I forgot which coach it was, but he was sitting there kind of in his desk, like in a spare bedroom, and it looked like very like the back room of a used car lot office. So you had the spectrum, and it's kind of interesting to human eye. I mean, they are human, but we only see them on the field getting angry, and to see them at home with their families is pretty neat, I think.
Yeah, Kingsbury, that was like all the talk about his home,
yeah.
Golly, that guy.
Well, I thought I'm maybe the steal or the picture of the draft was one of my favorites was Bill Belichick and the dog.
I got so tired of hearing about that dog. but I do think that maybe the dog was making the picks.
It was I don't want to question Uncle Bill, but
I think his dog might have been clicking a button there for him or something.
I was doing. I mean, and sure enough, they'll turn out to be ridiculously all pro, whatever. But it was there were some head scratchers, but I don't know that that's uncommon for New England.
Well, let's get into that. We're going to go through the picks and give our general thoughts. And I think, the first six were pretty expected. Nothing special or surprising there. Correct?
Oh yeah, it was money in the bank.
Hold on a second. I feel like
Brandon wants to pull the brakes.
I just feel like we rushed by these coaches' rooms.
Okay, Brandon wants to talk about interior decorating. So,
I do. Okay. So, was your favorite Cliff Kingsbury?
Why don't we draft these for the short show?
I thought about that.
Oh man, so maybe we'll do that later this week.
Yeah.
Better idea. All right, let's move forward.
All right, I've been vetoed. Cool.
Yeah, so the first six picks were just kind of like, nothing special, nothing really to talk about. But moving past that.
Yeah, I think the first six went with no trades. It went exactly how it was. And then number 7, I expected Carolina to take Isaiah Simmons because he was the best available. And they took Derek Brown instead from Auburn. I thought that you can't argue with that pick. They needed to go defense. And Derek Brown is a cog on the defense.
And he's a disruptor at the defensive tackle position. And we've seen what that guy in the middle of the line can do. So great pick, but I know you prefer Isaiah Simmons.
I like Isaiah Simmons. I don't know if I told you, Josh, but I like Isaiah Simmons, and I loved Arizona getting to pick him at number 8 because
I think you mentioned on the live stream that you liked Isaiah Simmons maybe once. So yeah, I mean, he's a great athlete, and for Arizona, they needed help on the defensive side of the ball. They need playmakers, and they're in good shape on the offensive side of the ball at this point after trading for DeAndre Hopkins and the weapons they already had. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, Isaiah Simmons is great, so no arguments for me.
So in the top 15 picks, so if you go down for the rest of the pick, was there a surprise or a
Jaguars was a trade, right?
No, that was the Jaguars. Number 9, that was their original pick. So they traded for a first round pick. But
so that is where I was going though. That was kind of a surprise to me, taking C.J. Henderson at number 9,
especially with their needs of offensive line.
Yeah,
they needed to address offensive line, in my opinion, and they had they had great offensive linemen available there.
Jedrick Wills was still available. Tristan Wirfs was still available. I mean, they could have went in a different direction. And I know, like, that's what they do. They draft defensive players, but we've seen some Florida cornerbacks really falter here lately. My Colts actually traded on day 3 of the draft. We traded Quincy Wilson for a 6th round pick. So
that's what they thought of him.
Yeah, and he was a 2nd rounder. So we've been down that road, and I'm glad that we are past it. So good luck to the Jacksonville Jaguars and their homer, C.J. Henderson.
Yeah. I think also then, of course, at number 12, surprise when Las Vegas took Henry Ruggs as the first wide receiver off the board. I think they brought Al Davis back from the dead and let him make that pick. Fastest guy in the draft, going to Vegas.
I mean, how shocked I was by it. I was irritated by the pick because, they needed an alpha wide receiver. And and I guess like in a way it makes sense because there's no speed like Henry Ruggs' speed in this draft class. The closest we get is KJ Hamler, and he's not as complete as Ruggs.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it was surprising, and I didn't love it, but I'm not a Raiders fan, so it doesn't really hurt my feelings that bad.
Yeah, and so going like kind of finishing the 15. I think that the Tampa Bay might have got the best offensive lineman in the draft in Tristan Wirfs. I know they had to give up a later round pick to move up to get him, just one spot. But I thought that was a really not real sexy, but it was a super solid pick.
I know you were surprised when the Giants took Andrew Thomas at number 4.
I was, but like again, their board. I mean, they do a lot more research than we do, so I'm not like poo-pooing on.
Preference.
Right. So I'm not poo-pooing on them. They took the position that we thought, and if they had Andrew Thomas highest on their board, then power to him. And he was versatile at Georgia. He played both sides, so I'm totally okay with that pick. But yeah, I agree. All right, moving on. 16 to 20, back half of the round. Any picks you like, Josh? Didn't like? Questionable picks? Were you surprised?
Good picks.
Were you surprised whenever Philadelphia took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson?
Well, I think we're actually having technical difficulties right now. For the listener, we are doing this via Zoom to do our duty to stay quarantined, and Josh is frozen up and he just dropped.
Oh man, good. All right, let me talk about this without him, so I don't have him whisper or like arguing back his guard. I'll tell you what he thinks.
Go for it. Hit me.
When Jalen Reagor was taking over Justin Jefferson, I thought that was a questionable pick by the Eagles. But the Eagles, I think they wanted to upgrade their speed in the draft, and so Jalen Reagor was a burner. He was fast, and so they did that. Justin Jefferson was a target monster and excellent wide receiver at LSU, but he didn't run as fast. So I don't hate it. They went the position that we thought, but with a different player than we predicted. So that was a interesting piece. And kind of circling back at 17, when Dallas took CeeDee Lamb, they already are stacked at wide receiver with Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and so now they've added another alpha with maybe the best wide receiver in the draft in CeeDee Lamb. It just felt like a wasteful luxury pick.
Stacked wide receivers is going to be fun for fantasy.
Yeah,
a lot of fantasy implications there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it hurt from a fantasy standpoint. The Cowboys drafting CeeDee Lamb, I think it hurts everybody's fantasy outlook except for Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott just solidified his spot as the QB3 in the initial rankings behind Lamar and Pat Mahomes. But I thought I just thought it was a wasteful, not wasteful, but just a frivolous pick. Showing off. Yeah, like I guess we'll just take wide receiver. And the word on the street was that he was their number 6 rated player on their big board. So out of all the players that they potentially could draft.
So after the draft, can we see? Do they ever publish these boards, like their short lists and everything? I would really be interested to see that.
That would be fascinating to see, but I think they would consider it proprietary and probably aren't.
Yeah,
aren't good. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna.
That's too bad.
That would be fascinating to look at.
And I was hoping to kind of see something like that, being in the homes like that. Maybe a sheet of paper or like a whiteboard in the background or something. And did you see something?
No, but I thought one of the when we watch it and they're all in the same play, they're typical.
Yeah.
I think that it seems like they've got 72 screens and there's 40 people that are in a war room and they're talking and debating it, but it looked like these guys were just sitting in their house,
hugging their family goodnight.
Yeah, they were just, FaceTiming the grandkids. I was surprised someone didn't have some board games out, but it didn't seem like they were doing a lot of homework or there was any sort of scrambling or anything happening.
So it makes you wonder, everybody's seeing how useless going to the office is right now. Why do they have all that in the past? What was the point?
I mean, some of them, it looked like they had, a lot of stuff on their walls and
Yeah.
whatnot. But I mean, some of them they might as well. They just had like a diary on there, or just a legal pad that like they could write some stuff
Who
down.
knows? So yeah, Josh is back.
So yeah, what were you saying about CeeDee Lamb, Brandon?
Oh, I was just saying it was I've told the listeners it was just a frivolous pick. As Jerry Jones is on his $250 million yacht, they could address a defensive need or an edge guy right there, but they said, you know what? Let's just take the best wide receiver in the draft, and so they did end up working out for him later, as we'll see. But I just thought it was just a frivolous pick. Just
Yeah, and
a
I mean,
surprise, yeah.
also they had the center retire, and we saw,
New Orleans takes Caesar. Yeah.
8 or 9 picks later, we saw New Orleans take a center. So they really could have, but I think it was just
we'll
too
get
good
there
of a player
later.
to pass
We'll get there
up and
later in the
CeeDee
round. Yeah, we'll get there later in the rounds with Dallas. I think that you're right. They maybe felt like it was too early to take a center. They actually ended up getting the top center in college football in 2019 from Wisconsin in the 4th round, which was I thought was maybe their best pick of the draft.
Yeah. And
so what
we actually didn't touch on it, but San Francisco taking Javon Kinlaw, with the pick that they traded DeForest Buckner. So that's what we had talked about before is, they're kind of getting out of the contract. Yeah, it's no guarantee that Kinlaw is going to be great in the NFL. No DeForest Buckner, but they could afford to pay him.
Right.
So they ended up getting his replacement there. So we can move on. I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, and that's sort of like for San Francisco. That's another luxury pick. I mean, they're loaded on the defensive line, but they're reloading with maybe the best defensive lineman in the draft. I guess Derek Brown has something to say about that, but like one of the best defensive linemen in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that
they're different? They're different players, too.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you think that the Jaguars got enough? They drafted at 20 with the pick that they gave up for Jalen Ramsey. They took Chasen out of LSU. Do you think they got enough to warrant that trade? Did you like that, or like what they did?
Yes. The only reason I say yes is because Ramsey didn't want to play there anymore. He didn't want to be a Jaguar, and so they get a guy that can disrupt the game and not the locker room like Ramsey was.
That's a good soundbite. So I thought that I still think that they should have addressed the offensive line there, but at that point, your top guys had gone, so I thought the pick was fine.
Yeah. I'll agree with you on that early pick. They would have been better off taking Wills or whoever they like the offensive line.
So in the bottom half of the first round, anything other than, I mean, obviously the Green Bay trading up for Jordan Love. We could do a whole podcast on speculation of what in the world's going on in Green Bay. But other than that particular trade, what was noteworthy to you?
Miami kind of surprised me. They did well. They took players in positions of need, but what surprised me wasn't that they took good players at different positions, but that they didn't draft a running back, and they really didn't for the majority of the draft. With all those first rounders, I thought they might go for one of these high-end guys, and instead it looks like it's going to be
Matt Breida.
Yeah, Matt Breida. I forgot they traded for him on day 3.
Yeah.
And who's the other guy, though, from Chicago?
Jordan Howard.
Jordan Howard. He made a stop in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia as well.
What are you doing, Josh?
So, yeah, getting wild. So Jordan Howard, I think, is going to be a great fantasy asset just because of the way everything shook out. And Matt Breida is not really able to stay healthy. I'll be interested to see what he does outside of that zone blocking scheme that Shanahan runs.
Yeah, that will be interesting. I think that the Saints, New Orleans, picking a center in the first round. Typically centers don't go that high, but that's counter to what Green Bay is doing. So the Green Bay and the Saints had identical records this year, I believe. They were both 12-4, 13-3. They were right there together, and so they're both close, and they both have aging but still elite quarterbacks, what we consider old elite quarterbacks. But they seem to be have two different thoughts in mind of what they can do right now. The Saints seem to think that the window is still open. Green Bay's drafting like they think they're ready to pack up for a few years and do a rebuild. It's fast. I mean, it's fascinating.
So and there's a difference in the there's a difference in the contract layout right now for both guys too, where Rodgers has 2 years of big money left on his contract, 20 and 21, before they can get out of it. And so it looks like you'd be protecting that guy and trying to push all in and get to a championship. But that's not what they're doing. So it's a little bit weird because it's the same dynamic with the Saints where Drew Brees has got 1, maybe 2 years left on contract, and he may not play that second year of his contract. So it's just we know the Saints are going to do better business, but
yeah. I mean, they've been super solid. I saw where they made that trade with the Washington Redskins years ago to push all their chips in the middle for Ricky Williams. But still, even in the past 20 years, you would still rather have their franchise. They set themselves back so far, but I think trading for Drew Brees and getting Sean Payton as a coach have made them a solid, stable franchise.
they didn't even have to trade for Brees. He came in as a free agent. So
yeah.
So I mean, so it's when you have a guy like that walk through the door because he wants to be part of what you're building, it's good.
So the last thing I want to note on the first round, and then we can move on or talk about team winners or whatever, wherever producer Gunner wants to take us, is I just want to mention the pick by my Titans. I wasn't sure where we were going to go. I thought we were going to go an edge guy or a defensive lineman there, but I was, I find myself kind of excited about big Isaiah Wilson because he's
Isaiah Wilson is a dog. He's a dog, man. He's nasty. He'll get in the trenches and win you games.
And he's huge, and I think that he has even more potential because some of the knock on him is his technique's not there yet. But I mean, you can't teach that. You can't teach,
that's exactly
gorilla
right.
size. Yeah,
that's
you
exactly
just can't
right.
teach that. So I love that, and it fits what the Titans want to do is a mauler franchise. Just beat the other team up physically.
Yeah, it fits y'all's head coach, the mentality of what you guys are doing, and former dog, so I'm all about it. I think it was a great pick.
Before moving on to round two, I got a quick question for you guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Josh, cutting out quite a bit, but out of round one picks, do you see any pure strategy picks just for later trades?
I don't know that anyone stands out to me or that they even draft like that. I do think that the Jordan Love pick by Green Bay makes me think that in a couple of years, Aaron Rodgers could be on the trading block and they could be trying to move in that direction. That's the
maybe so.
That won't be. I don't know. That's because
say.
Green Bay, but he may be demanding a trade just because there's so much drama.
I think he's gonna. So at the phone call, there was a phone call. Jordan Love and he talked, and it seemed like that Aaron Rodgers is actually on board with everything that's going on. So I think he's going to be that big quarterback that you see the bid war for here in 2 years. There's going to be a few teams that feel like they're in a win now mode, and it's going to be Aaron Rodgers' watch on ESPN. So we can look forward to that in 2 years.
Okay,
hold on. Let's move on to round two.
Well, real quick.
Oh, come on.
I had two players I wanted to talk about from round one. Patrick Queen going to Baltimore. I thought that was great.
Yeah,
great fit. He fits what they do.
That's his,
they got a linebacker. That's what they like. So, and then the other one was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We can't leave the first round without talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh man, yeah. I was surprised whenever they announced that. I think everyone in the world felt like the Chiefs were going running back, but I think we felt like they were going to go DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor. But then they announced for Clyde Edwards, and we all were like, oh, my mind blown. But then suddenly we think about it, and you're like, yeah, you know what? He actually fits better than the other two guys.
So my mentality coming into it was no matter what running back they took at 32, because that's where I thought they were going. Yeah. And no matter which one they took, it was going to be great. And Helaire is he's a lot like Brian Westbrook. So yeah. But we can move on into round two. I know you guys were ready to move on a minute ago, and I held you up. So,
all right, round two. And the first few picks, you guys have anything that sticks out, or is it just kind of like the first round, where it's kind of expected?
Well,
I
things
think
get dicey when you get out of the first round.
yeah, they do. In the first part, so if we just take the first 6 or 7 picks, the most surprising there, oh man, there's so many different things that you could like storylines. I thought that Clemson taking T. Higgins, I thought that was great. A rookie quarterback and wide receiver can grow together, but the most surprising for me was New England taking Kyle Duggar from Lenore Ryan. He was a combine standout.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a freak there, but I think most people expected them to take a tight end. But yeah, they picked this guy that I mean, essentially we've never heard of. What was
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was surprising, and it's always a surprise when the Patriots pick.
yeah,
Um,
it's surprising.
so
Yeah,
not necessarily a surprise, but I was
right.
glad to
It's
see we
surprising.
added some weapons. Michael Pittman, because he was great at USC.
Mhm.
Carolina getting Gross Matos, man, that was a fun pick because they need defensive playmakers, and they got 2 back to
They
back.
got 2 back to back, and Gross Matos had he had a first round grade from a lot of places. We went, I think all of our mock drafts went in the first round. So this excellent value at pick 38.
Just
So
shows the depth at the skill positions on the offensive side of the ball because you rarely see edge rushers like that fall into the second round. So, it's just because we had deeper positions this year.
So moving
And then
to
41, I was genuinely surprised when my Colts took Jonathan Taylor.
you didn't think that they were going to go running back?
No, I didn't, man. I didn't think we were going to. I was pleasantly surprised. Came out of my recliner. I was pumped up.
Oh, you got him to stand up.
Yeah. So, and getting him at 41 didn't seem like a reality, something that could happen earlier in the process. So,
Yeah, you felt like he'd probably be off. I felt like he'd probably be off the board by then too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most people had him as the second ranked running back in NFL circles, not fantasy. In fantasy, they had him at number 1.
Right. But you don't. I mean, you got to see where he lands and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought Cole Kmet going to Chicago was questionable
Yeah,
at
makes
best.
perfect sense though.
Because it's Chicago, they're going to do
exactly.
questionable things. But like he was consensus best tight end in the draft, but they just signed Jimmy Graham. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. No idea what they're doing.
Yeah, they don't either.
So that was a fun pick because it just was a head scratcher of sorts. And I thought that KJ Hamler at 46, pick 14 in the second round, going to Denver. So they went back-to-back wide receivers. So when Jerry Jeudy and then KJ Hamler, they upgraded their speed, their receiving core, and Drew Lock is going to be able to air it out. And him and his tiny hands are going to they're going to be able to throw the ball
Is
around
Drew Lock
a lot.
a tiny hands guy?
He's a tiny hands guy, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that. I'm sure I knew it at one point or another, but he kind of dismissed it, playing well last year.
Yeah.
So I'd forgotten. KJ Hamler was kind of a fun pick. I agree. He didn't run at the combine, but he was the only guy that probably could have ran with Ruggs.
Yeah, he's fast. He's
then you had Darrell Taylor go at 48 to Seattle. I know you like to see that coming out of Tennessee.
Tennessee guy. They moved up to get him. And so there was speculation that they'd consider moving up to the first round to get him. I think he's a high ceiling guy, but he never scratched it at Tennessee or wasn't able to scratch it. He showed up in big games, but consistency was an issue. But I mean, he's going to play for Seattle, who has traditionally had really excellent defenses and defensive line. So I'm excited to see them develop him and what comes of that. So I'm excited for that. If he was I think it's more fun when they go to a good fit. Your college players do.
Yeah, it's easier to see a good result, beforehand. So you like to see it. I don't know if I said that. I know I said it, but I don't know if my technical difficulties chopped it off or not. But I was just trying to say that if we're skipping over picks made by your team, it's because we thought they were good picks. If they were bad picks, we talk about it. So we're talking about the great picks and we're talking about the terrible picks. So if you made a good pick, that's why we're not talking about it.
It was probably a solid pick. So we're kind of moving quickly through the draft, giving you a quick overview of some highlights. So that's a good note there, Josh.
Yeah. So couple of running backs. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about Jalen Hurts going to Philadelphia.
That was a story of the second round. I think some people, and you said it when we talked about Jalen Hurts last week on the pod, in terms of where you should bet that he should be drafted, and you said a team would fall in love with him and would get him in the second round. You know, I don't know that Philadelphia was even in my mind that would be the team that would fall in love with him.
Nope. Me either. But it makes sense because they know, and I know they believe, based on the Nick Foles scenario, is they're only as good as their backup quarterback, because they don't win the Super Bowl when Carson Wentz goes down with injury that year. They don't win the Super Bowl if they don't have a great backup. And so that's something that they value, and they get it at a good value by taking him in the second round.
Yeah. And this, one of the things about Jalen Hurts, and so who was the first pick, overall pick in the draft last year? Yeah, it was Kyler Murray. Who was the first overall pick in the draft last year?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. Both of them played for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
So I know Jalen Hurts only played. I mean, and Kyler Murray only started 1 year for Lincoln Riley, but they both played in that system. And Kyler Murray has clearly transitioned from Arizona to has clearly
from Oklahoma to Arizona.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. You got distracted there by your watch.
Yeah, just received notice that there was maybe some fake news preventing different businesses from opening, and I might actually be able to open sooner than I thought.
Yeah,
congratulations. That's good news.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. So for the listener, I am currently unemployed, so I'm excited to get back to work.
Corona-ployed.
Corona-ployed. There we go.
Cam Akers going to the Rams made perfect sense because they bad offensive line there in LA, and that's what he's dealt with in Florida State. So
right at home.
Yeah, another day at the office. He's gonna enjoy it. Just getting the tarnations kicked out of him on every play. Maybe they'll get an offensive line for him sooner rather than later because he's very talented.
And then J.K. Dobbins went 3 picks later to Baltimore, which I thought was a much better landing spot if you're a running back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got lanes being opened up by Lamar Jackson's ability to create plays with his legs on that option. And, J.K. Dobbins is not a terrible receiver. He's not a natural receiver, but maybe he can learn. He's an athlete. He's a very good player. So he's going to develop in that role if they need him to, hopefully. And another head scratcher by Green Bay, A.J. Dillon. When you need a wide receiver and you take a bruiser.
There's still tons of wide receivers available at this point in the draft. Bottom of the second round, tons of wide receivers available, and they take a 250-pound running back.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with the running back being 250 pounds, but one of the things about them is that they probably need to run the ball several times. They're like a bruiser to wear down the offense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, they had like Aaron Jones did a fine job at running back. Are you going to take him off the field for A.J. Dillon to just beat up on the?
Well, Jamal Williams, that
didn't seem to be the problem.
They had a great running game last year,
yes.
And it didn't make any sense for them to trade up and take a quarterback in front of 3 teams that were not going to be taking a quarterback, and not draft a wide receiver where they sat when they've got Aaron Rodgers. I just don't get it.
Oh man. So I mean, I know if you're a Green Bay fan, it's no surprise to you. I mean, you know that your draft was not good.
We're sorry. If you're a Green Bay fan, we're sorry. You're taking the kicking that Houston's been receiving the entire offseason.
So a couple cornerbacks that I want to mention from the bottom of round 2 is Trayvon Diggs made it all the way to 19th pick of the second round, pick 51 for Cowboys. So we speculated that the Cowboys might take him at 17. And he's still on the board whenever they pick at 51. I think that it makes that CeeDee Lamb pick just so sexy. I mean, just such a good pick because they were still able to get Trayvon Diggs and address the cornerback need. And then Christian Fulton from LSU still being on the board for the Titans to take at 61. They need a cornerback, and he that's a good fit. I love that pick for my Titans.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty well covered the second round. We could probably get moving into the third. Like we said, there, plenty of picks we could talk about, but we don't have all the time. So if we didn't mention your team's pick there in the first or second round, it's no knock on it. It's quite the opposite. So, good job, go team.
Yeah. So at the top of the third round, the best pick in the first 10 or so picks, or a couple, but the first I think you would say is Antonio Gibson for Memphis.
Man, I loved it.
Yeah.
I love that pick.
We don't say this often about Washington making a good pick, but they made a great pick in Chase Young, and they made a great pick here with Antonio Gibson.
So we're looking, and there was some conversation about this in the pre-draft process. We're looking on the CBS Sports tracker right now. That's how we're keeping up with these picks. And Antonio Gibson's listed as a running back, but that's not what Washington drafted him as. They drafted him as a wide receiver. And if you're Antonio Gibson, you absolutely want that wide receiver tag for money purposes.
Yeah, yeah.
So shame on you, CBS.
But he's an offensive weapon for the man. He's going to play all over the field in kind of a not gadget, but in a Swiss Army type role.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver in a running back's bodies.
Yeah,
that's the kind of players that you want right now in the NFL. That's where the league's kind of leaning. So great pick by Washington. Yeah. And if you look at Christian McCaffrey, he was drafted by Riverboat Ron, and now he gets Antonio Gibson. I'm not saying they're the same player by any means, but same type of player.
Yeah. I think so then Arizona at pick 72 addresses their offensive line with Josh Jones from Houston.
That's exactly where I was looking. As a great pick.
A lot of people had him pegged. I mean, as a first round. I mean, they had him in the top 50 at least, and he ends up going 72. So I love the value there. Man, the more I see Arizona draft and develop, I mean, I'm a small believer. I think they're doing some good things over there. And
Arizona's offense is going to be a ton of fun, and they added some defensive playmakers. So if they can wreck a game, they don't have to. They could be a bend, don't break, and create turnovers. And they don't have to be dominant. They don't have to be the San Francisco 49ers with that offense. They just need to create enough turnovers to win the game. Yeah. And I think they've got a good recipe brewing over there. Tampa Bay's pick at 76, Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah.
Keyshawn Vaughn, however you want to say his name. He's
Sean.
Yeah, buddy. Out of Vanderbilt. Great player. And he's a guy that can stay on the field all the time. Tampa Bay's going to love him. He fits Bruce Arians. He may be Tom Brady's best buddy before it's all said and done.
Yeah. I think that Tampa Bay's they're loading up to go after it. I mean, they know their window is they pull the window open.
Yeah.
With Brady, Jameis wasn't he was a fun quarterback, but I don't know he was ever the quarterback that was going to get you through the playoffs. They feel like the window's open and they are moving, like they're throwing after.
To me, it feels like Cleveland though. The hype train's in full forward motion, and
they need some offensive line.
Well, I mean, the chemistry's got to be there too. It could be a cocktail for disaster. So I hope not for everybody that's involved over there in Tampa and for their fans. They deserve a championship. But
for Brady, you hope that it is a cocktail for a disaster because it'll be fun to watch.
No. On the contrary, I'd like to see Brady succeed in Tampa
without Uncle Bill
and lose to Uncle Bill in the Super Bowl.
that would be a fun story.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But
so picks 80 and 81 were Las Vegas, and they took.
That's what I wanted to talk about. 80.
So I mean, we can talk about them together. So they took Lynn Bowden Jr. from Kentucky, kind of like Antonio Gibson. He's a gadget player. I mean, he's a offensive.
He played quarterback his last season, right?
Right. Yeah, played quarterback. He was a wide receiver. They've lined him up at running back. But just an athlete. He was first-team All-American as an all-purpose player. And then they took Brian Edwards, who's a big wide receiver. So in their first three picks, three of their first three-round picks are wide receivers.
Yep.
That's interesting. I mean, they're going after it. I think that they had a few more needs, but there's a solid chance that some of those guys got a hit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Brian Edwards is great. He's a
Yeah.
great wide receiver. So,
Man, he almost had South Carolina come back when we played them this year against
yeah,
Tennessee.
yeah. And the Rams got him a good edge rusher at 84 there, Terrell Lewis at Alabama.
Mm. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was a bit confused when we took Julian Blackman. When I say we, I mean Indianapolis at 85, just because Blackman is coming off of that ACL tear. He's not expected to be ready for the start of the season. There was some speculation that we were afraid he may not be there if we waited any longer. But that's who we drafted. So hopefully that pays off. And
yeah. New England finally taking a tight end at pick 91, Asiasi from UCLA. He was I guess their tight ends coach in New England now used to coach him at was he somewhere before UCLA?
I couldn't tell you, man.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that that's where he was. Like he was the he played for the tight end coach, so he should have some chemistry there with him already.
Yeah.
But so that's an interesting kind of connection, and he'll be the best tight end in the tight end room in New England right off the bat because they don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
So their opportunity abounds for him, depending on what they're going to do with their offense or how it's going to work with whoever is running it. There, I thought that like in the bottom of the third round, where there it was any picks that were head scratchers, it was kind of ho hum. There wasn't a lot of action.
Yeah, it was a bit of a snoozer when we got right in there. Nothing real exciting happened. The tight end going to New Orleans down at 105, the trade from Minnesota, it was a compensatory pick from Minnesota. Yeah. Adam Troutman, that could be a fun pick here in a year or two.
Yeah, he's I want to say I saw he was like the first player that's been drafted out of Dayton ever, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly the stat on it, but so maybe I shouldn't bring it up. But yeah, so Dayton, he's from Dayton University, and so they don't typically have players drafted in football. But I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah,
they went down and find him, and I guess I'm just now recalling, but New England went tight ends back to back there because they picked up Dalton Keene from Virginia Tech. So I guess they're going to run jumbo all the time. Not sure.
Well, with that quarterback situation, they're not looking to push the ball too far down the field, I don't think.
Yeah, so that makes sense on why they would do that. So
buy your Sony Michel if you can. That's what I believe.
Yeah, so let's move on to round 4 and kind of hit just a little highlights, and we might have some honorable mentions beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good call.
I want to make sure we make it far enough to where we can get to Jacob Eason.
So Jacob Eason.
I thought that was an incredible value in the 4th round.
Golly, he might have the best arm in this draft class too. Honestly,
I agree with that. And it looks so good as a 4th round pick. I mean, even if they drafted him in the 2nd round, you wouldn't have, said that's a terrible pick.
That was his grade. That was his draft grade, 2nd round. So, you get him in the 4th is a steal. And I think it just came down to, like we said before, I think in another draft class he may have been an earlier pick, but because of the way the talent was in this draft, he just kept getting pushed down. And he's a Colts fan. He wore a Colts jersey every day in middle school.
Man, that's fun.
Peyton Manning jersey.
Yeah.
So
I did. Yeah, I saw the interview.
That's it's great. Love the pick. So exciting.
So, Denver took Albert Okwuegbunam, weird last name, from Missouri at 118. He was all season because he played in the SEC and we play in the same side as Missouri. Tennessee plays on the same side as Missouri. Yep. So we constantly heard the last 2 years about how he was a pro prospect. He's a future pro. He's excellent. He's great. He never could stay on the field, never could stay healthy. So the thing that I question about that pick is Denver seems pretty set at tight end, right? They have two. Jake Butt is still there that they're developing.
Yeah, I think he's going to be headed out though. I think he's on his. Yeah, but yeah, they drafted one last year.
Right, Fant. Yeah, that's the guy. Fant was the guy from last year. I was trying to remember.
Out of Iowa.
Yep. But so that was, I don't know, like questionable that they've spent So they got 2 wide receivers, a tight end.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
you know exactly what it is. You're in the division with
got
Pat
they got to keep
Mahomes
up
and the
with the
Kansas
Chiefs.
City
Yep,
Chiefs. You're
that's
not going to
exactly
stop
it.
them.
That's right.
You
That's
better
right.
pile some points on. I saw him interviewing Andy Reid, and they asked him about that, about all the teams in their division just getting weapons, trying
Yeah.
to keep up. And he said, "Yeah, I've heard the nature of the game to score more points than the other team." So,
He's on to something. He's on to something.
yeah, Big Andy, he knows, man.
And I want to give a shout out. I think the 2 of my favorite picks of the 4th round, or just I say my favorite, like I'm a fan, but like the great value picks were DJ Wonnum, who's a defensive end from South Carolina, and then James Lynch, who's a defensive tackle from Baylor. 2 defensive linemen went to the Vikings. They had like 1,000 picks in this draft. I think they had like 17 for real.
Yep.
But so they loaded up. But these are 2 guys who Wonnum was highly rated out of high school, and he was a solid producer at South Carolina. But James Lynch led the nation in quarterback pressures last year. So he's a disruptor in the middle, high motor guy. Played for Matt Rule at Baylor. I want to say he had like 65 quarterback pressures, like a ridiculous number.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about Michael P. Ryan going to the Jets? What's your opinion?
He's a good. I mean, he's a handcuff for Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, I thought he was fine at Florida. You know, I, I, I mean, I think he's drafted.
I don't remember him being much of a receiver, but
No, he caught some stuff out of the backfield, but so he can be a check down guy. I just that's a good landing spot for him because he can. I like that's about where he should fit. You know, he was a good run. I mean, just a good running back.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, just as a comparison, I think that I probably like him better as a running back than Keyshawn Vaughn, and they got him 2 rounds later.
Right.
So that's
let's call it right there. We got to move on. A lot of good picks, a lot of bad picks. Who do you think had the best draft?
Man, there were some teams that had some good drafts. I get like I'm gonna say.
Wait, is this Fantasyland?
No, this is
Sounds like a Fantasyland question.
No.
We're not fans. So this is like real. So for like competing for
NFL purposes, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna say the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys had the best draft, and the reason that I would say that is because they were able to get CeeDee Lamb, who you and I think it was the best receiver in the draft, which they don't even need a receiver, but they were able to get him. And they still got Trayvon Diggs, the cornerback, so they'd address that need. And then they still got Tyler Biadasz, who is the center from Wisconsin, who was the number 1 center in college football last year. So they were able to address those needs and still get a luxury pick in the first round. And they got Gallimore from Oklahoma in the third, fourth round, who is just a physical freak. And you, again, just like with Isaiah Wilson, you just can't teach that. You know, like you can learn technical stuff, but when a guy comes in physically ready, like you can't teach that. So I thought that I'll go with them for my winner of the draft.
Yeah. I'm going to say Green Bay Packers
as the winner,
but I'm joking.
Okay.
Yeah, they're definitely not the winners. I'm just going to be a homer and take the Colts. Like I didn't want to because it sounds bad, but we had a great draft. You know, like it is what it is. The Cowboys probably are the best, and so I'm going to go with the Colts.
I thought they had a great draft. I mean, you know, we thought about putting a segment in here comparing, you know, the Colts draft to the Titans draft, just, you know, so we could kind of debate that. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't put it in here because the Colts had a much better
time
draft.
Constraints too. Like,
and the Colts had a much better draft than the Titans did, in my opinion. Although, like the Titans weren't terrible, although the Colts were very good. Yeah. Any other teams that you aren't a homer of that you just want to give an honorable mention to?
San Francisco did a good job.
I've got them on my short list. I've also got the Vikings.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you've got 70,000 picks, you can do that.
And here's a team who we need to give them credit because they don't typically draft well or do well. Is I want to give an honorable mention to the Redskins.
Oh, the Redskins, yeah.
I thought
Cleveland drafted well too.
Yes, I agree with that. But I want to shout out. So we can shout out Cleveland and the Redskins for both drafting well. And I thought whenever I look through it, and then we kind of segue into, I had a lot more difficult time finding teams that I thought had a terrible draft.
Yeah. Well, when there's that much talent available, it's hard, man. It's hard to screw it up unless you just
Well, let me tell you about a team that screwed.
you
Let me tell you.
packer that thing.
Yeah, let me tell. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers as the team that
Yeah.
had the most questionable bad draft.
Yeah, I don't think there was another team to compete with them.
Yeah, I would say the Bears tried.
Yeah.
And the Bears didn't have a first round pick to mess up.
I was going to say they didn't screw up the first round.
So but that's because they've given their first round pick away. I don't know if that was in the Mitchell Trubisky trade or what, but
Yeah.
they didn't do so hot. And then
No. That was the Raiders trade for Khalil Mack. So they actually
that's
win.
right. That's
they
that's
actually
right.
win that
That's-
deal.
that's good. Right. So that's correct. They're probably all paid out on the Trubisky trade.
Yeah.
So the Packers, the Bears, any other teams that you thought had a below average or bad draft?
Not off the top of my head. I feel like everybody was pretty much solid.
You know who actually? Let me put a team on there who I think has proven that they're good, and so I'm going to put a team on the bad draft list. I want to put New Orleans on there. They had 4 picks. They only had 4 picks in the draft.
Yeah.
So they addressed the need. So they got the center in the first round, but they used one of their
Felt like
picks.
a reach too.
Yeah, it felt like a reach. So they could have traded back and picked up some extra picks. So
Yep.
they had some draft capital. And I don't think that would have been a difficult play. I think there were teams that wanted to move up and they just needed anything. But and then I'll say but then they also drafted a quarterback with one of their, like in the 7th round with one of their picks.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, if you don't feel confident that a quarterback is going to be able to take on the reins and become a new starter, then
use that pick on something else.
Correct, right? Like you would have picked him earlier, you would think.
Depth at an offensive line, area, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you can never have too many edge rushers. You can never have too many offensive linemen. There's certain positions where you always need that depth. Quarterback, you only need a couple.
Yeah. So it was a fun draft overall. A lot of winners because there was so much talent in the draft.
Yeah. Let's roll on. Let's get into some Fantasyland, Gunner. What do you think?
Sure, let's do it. Let's go to Fantasyland.
Fantasyland.
Yeah, we are in Fantasyland. First up, staying with the theme of the 2020 draft, what rookie are you most excited to draft whatever you can this season? Or wherever you can. I'm sorry. Wherever you can. Yeah. So your most anticipated rookie to draft.
Jonathan Taylor for me. It's Jonathan Taylor.
JTT.
Yeah,
I suspected that maybe.
Coming on into Indy, he was already the number 1 fantasy prospect this year, just size, speed. He's a dominant player. And then we've got some road graders on the offensive line.
Yeah, he gets to play behind a fantastic offensive line. So
he's a natural receiver. He doesn't get a lot of talent for it, but if you watch his film, he catches the ball pretty naturally. They didn't ask him to do it a lot in Wisconsin, but who's going to ask him to do that a lot is Phillip Rivers. He is a check down machine.
Yeah. And so he'll get it in open space and he can break it. I mean, that's a good pick. And also like he plays for your Colts. So anytime you can legitimately draft a player who plays on your team,
you feel better about it.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to go with one that I'm excited about is Justin Jefferson. And I'd go by value. Obviously, like Clyde Edwards, I would be excited to get him. So I want to make no bones that I feel like, Justin Jefferson is going to outperform Clyde Edwards. But I think Justin Jefferson is going to provide excellent value wherever you're able to get him because I think that he's going to be a target monster in Minnesota. He's been able to get he just gets open and so smooth in and out of his routes and just has glue on his hands. I think that I'm excited. I think I'll have a lot of shares of him.
Yeah,
depending on how they hype him up.
All right, next up,
as a rookie wide receiver, he's not going to get enough hype to get him out of your range.
Well, especially because there's so many. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, next up, what player were you most excited about before the NFL draft?
Go ahead and take it first, Brandon.
I'm gonna go with Cam Akers. Cam played for Florida State for a bad offensive line his entire time there, and I thought he was one of the best running backs in college football. So I'm thinking he's going to get in a situation, in a really advantageous situation, drafted by a good team.
Kansas City.
Someone that's going to draft him in a second, third, fourth round, and just get a steal, and he's going to be able to prove how good he is. And then he goes to the Rams, where they also have offensive line issues. So he's the guy that they need because he's used to working with that. But I just feel bad for him. So
Yeah. I mean, you do feel bad for him, but he's made the best that he could out of it in Florida State, and they'll address it in LA, and they'll get it fixed in a year or so. Hopefully, they're in the middle of a rebuild, so probably would have made sense to draft an offensive lineman. But anyways, for me, it's DeAndre Swift going to the Lions. We've seen the Lions waste the career of so many great players. Barry Sanders retired early. Calvin Johnson retired early. Matthew Stafford, a great quarterback, never won a championship, and he's been on some great teams or some great offenses that he's orchestrated, but he hadn't had enough help on the defensive side of the ball. And so now DeAndre Swift is in there. He's going to mix it up with Kerryon Johnson. It's going to be a divide in the carries. It just sucks, man, because he's so talented. You'd like to have seen somewhere where he could get the lion's share.
Yeah, and it's hard to see him getting the lion's share unless Kerryon has a injury, which he could do. But I agree with that pick.
I guess he is going to get a lion's share, but that has more to do with being in Detroit than Gimli getting him enough carries.
I am slapping my knee right now.
Yeah. I thought that you might pick DeAndre Swift. That's not surprising to me.
Yeah. Well, it's a long fall from Kansas City to Detroit.
Yes.
Are you guys ready for lightning round now?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, let's hit it. First question. Do you think that more or less than 4 of the rookie running backs finish as a running back 2 or better this season? Last year we had 3.
I'll say less than.
Yeah. I think it's going to be right on 4, so I guess that'd be less, right?
So it'd be a push.
Yeah.
If it's right at 4, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say push.
You pushing? I'm saying less.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, will there be more than 3 wide receivers out of this draft class finish top 24 at the position? In 2019, we saw 2 do it.
Man, it's a good draft class of wide receivers. I'm going to say less than. Just tough for wide receivers.
I'm going to say more because we got some guys that can take the top off the defense.
All right. Will there be more than 2 rookie quarterbacks finish as quarterback 1 or quarterback 2 this season? Last year we had 3.
I'm going to say no, not more than 2.
Yeah, I'm going to say no.
We are in one accord there. Great. Which first round wide receiver are you drafting first in fantasy this season?
I'm saying Justin Jefferson.
I'm going Jalen Reagor.
Man, that's wild because neither one of those are the top 3 wide receivers.
Yep. It's all about landing spot.
Yep.
Who is more exciting for 2020 in fantasy, Jonathan Taylor or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Clyde.
I know Josh's pick. 100%.
I'm torn, man. I'm gonna take Jonathan Taylor, but I think both are in great situations.
Yeah,
I'm just taking the talent of Jonathan Taylor over the talent of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
I like the offense better for Helaire.
For sure.
Yeah.
For every player ever.
Yeah.
Wow, there was a lot to cover today. The draft, we knew it was coming. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Any final thoughts about the 2020 draft you guys want to cover before we sign off?
No, I think we've covered it.
Covered a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the 2021 draft is coming up here in 12 months. No, I'm just joking, guys. Yeah,
it was for that right now.
It was a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to seeing what these guys do on the field.
Yeah, I just want to say for our listeners, if you didn't have a chance to join us for the live stream, I thought that was a good time. I don't know if there's anything approaching that we would be doing live streams during, but I really enjoyed you guys' feedback and
So I'm going to drop this on you guys live right here.
There.
I think it'd be fun to do some live streams while we do some mock drafts this summer when we're preparing for our NFL drafts. We can talk about, what we're seeing live as it happens and how it's going to affect our drafts this fall.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think that we might could even bring some additional some listeners in to participate in our mock drafts just so we can get some different strategies and feedback.
Yeah. Let us know on the Twitter what you think about that idea, and we'll do it anyway.
One more thing, Josh, can you tell us where you're going to be on Thursday?
Thursday.
You got something coming up on Thursday. You got a special event.
No, I don't. Do I really?
Can you not talk about it?
No,
are you not a guest on another podcast?
Wednesday.
Yeah. Wednesday. I'm sorry.
Wednesday.
Man. Just plug it. Go ahead and plug it.
Sports opinions. I'm going to be on there. Talk about the Colts off season, what I've liked, what I haven't liked. It's just going to be a 10 to 15 minute little conversation with those guys over there. So be sure you listen to that podcast. And
it's called Sports Opinions.
Yeah, Sports Opinions.
We'll drop that in the show notes.
That was their handle on the Twitter. So we'll drop it in the show notes, and we will get you guys another link on Twitter. I was thrown off there when you said Thursday. I was in a little bit of a panic. I was like,
sorry.
I thought
I could have swore.
Man, like I almost forgot I was married. I was like, do I have a wedding? What am I supposed to be doing? So yeah.
Sorry to throw you off. Yeah. So
no, that's okay.
Check out that podcast. Check out what Josh had to say on Sports Opinions. And I think that about wraps it up. Hit us up on Twitter at non-neutral-zone1. You can participate in our short show spectacular poll on Tuesday or after Tuesday if you'd like. Send us an email, non-neutral-zone@gmail.com. If you have a mailbag question, we'll be going back to mailbags hopefully next week, now that we got a lot of the draft news out of the way. So you can drop us a question about the draft if you would like. We'd be happy to answer it. And I think that about wraps it up. Check out non-neutralzone.com to stay updated on everything. And I think we'll see you next time.
Absolutely will.
Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe wherever you listen and don't fall into the neutral zone.